The war in Ukraine has not only shattered the peace and security of the region, but also inflicted enormous humanitarian and economic costs on the country and its neighbors. In this section, we will explore some of the most devastating consequences of the war for Ukraine and the region. One of the most immediate and visible impacts of the war is the massive displacement of millions of people. According to the United Nations, more than 11 million people have left their homes in Ukraine so far, 5.3 million of which have left to neighboring countries, while 6.5 million people are now internally displaced in the country itself amidst the continuation of the war. The UN's Children Agency believes that 2/3 of all Ukrainian kids have been impacted and have had to flee their homes. Many of these displaced people face harsh living conditions, lack of access to basic services, and increased vulnerability to violence, exploitation, and human trafficking. Another major impact of the war is the destruction of infrastructure and livelihoods. The war has damaged or destroyed thousands of buildings, roads, bridges, railways, power lines, water pipes, and other vital facilities across Ukraine. This has disrupted the delivery of essential services such as health care, education, water supply, sanitation, and waste management. Moreover, the war has devastated the productive sectors of the economy, such as agriculture, industry, trade, and tourism. According to McKinsey, the war has reduced Ukraine's GDP by 15% in 2022 and 2023, and increased its poverty rate by 10 percentage points. The war has also eroded the human capital of Ukraine, as many skilled workers have left the country or been killed or injured in the fighting. A third major impact of the war is the disruption of energy supplies and trade. Ukraine is a key transit country for natural gas from Russia to Europe, and a major exporter of grain and other agricultural products to the world market. The war has disrupted these flows, causing shortages and price spikes in both Ukraine and its trading partners. For example, the war has cut off 40% of Europe's gas supply from Russia, leading to a surge in energy prices and a risk of blackouts. The war has also slashed Ukraine's grain exports by 30%, contributing to a global food crisis that threatens millions of people with hunger and malnutrition. A fourth major impact of the war is the increased risk of a nuclear accident. Ukraine has 4 nuclear power plants that provide about half of its electricity generation. The war has exposed these plants to potential attacks, sabotage, or cyber attacks that could cause a meltdown or a release of radioactive material into the environment. Moreover, the war has hampered the maintenance and security of these plants, as well as their access to fuel and spare parts. A nuclear accident in Ukraine could have catastrophic consequences for human health and the environment, not only in Ukraine but also in neighboring countries and beyond. The international response and implications of the conflict. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has triggered a global crisis that has tested the resolve and unity of the international community. Since the start of the war on February 23, 2022, more than 10,000 people have been killed and over 1.5 million have been displaced by the violence. The conflict has also disrupted vital energy supplies, trade flows and security arrangements in Europe and beyond. The international community has condemned Russia's aggression and violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The United Nations Security Council has adopted several resolutions demanding an immediate ceasefire, withdrawal of Russian troops and respect for international law. The United States and its allies have imposed a series of sanctions on Russia, targeting its key economic sectors, financial institutions and individuals. The sanctions have contributed to Russia's economic recession, currency depreciation and inflation. The international community has also provided diplomatic, military and humanitarian assistance to Ukraine. The United States has pledged over $2 billion in aid to Ukraine since 2014, including lethal weapons, training and equipment. The European Union has offered over 16 billion euros in grants and loans to support Ukraine's reforms, recovery and resilience. NATO has enhanced its presence and readiness in Eastern Europe, conducting joint exercises and patrols with Ukraine and other partners. The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, has deployed a monitoring mission to observe the situation on the ground and facilitate dialogue. The role of NATO and the EU has been crucial in deterring further Russian escalation and supporting Ukraine's sovereignty. However, the alliance and the bloc have also faced internal divisions and challenges in dealing with the crisis. Some NATO members, such as Turkey and Hungary, have expressed reservations about confronting Russia or providing arms to Ukraine. Some EU members, such as Germany and France, have advocated for dialogue and compromise with Russia, while others, such as Poland and Lithuania, have called for a tougher stance. The EU has also struggled to balance its energy dependence on Russia with its solidarity with Ukraine. The impact of the conflict on global security and stability has been profound and far-reaching. The war has undermined the rules-based international order and the norms of non-aggression and territorial integrity. It has increased the risk of nuclear proliferation and terrorism, as Russia has threatened to use nuclear weapons and has supported separatist groups in eastern Ukraine. It has also heightened tensions between major powers, such as the US and China, which have competing interests and perspectives on the crisis. The prospects for a peaceful resolution of the conflict remain uncertain and elusive. Despite several attempts at mediation and negotiation, including the Minsk agreements of 2014 and 2015, the parties have failed to implement a lasting ceasefire or a political settlement. The main obstacles include Russia's refusal to recognize Ukraine's sovereignty or withdraw its troops, Ukraine's insistence on restoring its territorial integrity or joining NATO, and the lack of trust and dialogue between the leaders. The international community faces a daunting task of finding a way out of this impasse and preventing further escalation or catastrophe. The key challenges include maintaining a united front against Russia's aggression, increasing pressure and incentives for dialogue and compromise, addressing the humanitarian crisis and rebuilding trust among the people, supporting Ukraine's reforms and resilience, and restoring confidence in the international order and cooperation.